嗨，廖兄，你应该跟那些该带单你跌倒家人，在他们心目亚当亚凡西见看待。
主要是。
好吧，看来你学来你的功夫就是一起行动的。
our life-size depiction of Sao Koju of the Eight Drunken Immortals, the staff of Green Dragon Studio welcomes you to instruction on one of the more difficult sets derived from one of the 5 main Northern Drunken styles. While various elements of this rare set can be seen in other Drunken forms, its total structure is unique and requires a great deal of hard preliminary training in order to perform it with speed, power, and correct execution. To begin our usual overview procedure, we'll look first at the set in its entirety, performed at a moderately fast pace, to give you an opportunity to assess its unusual structure and dynamics.
This is the basics of Kung Fu. Limited drunken boxing. Drunken boxing. Drunken fist. Drunken boxing. They perform it well. He's performing his style. Kung Fu.
Continue our overview. We'll go now to one slow motion view of the form, something very difficult to do with a Drunken set that has the ground technique that this one does, because it tends to kill the momentum at critical points of the form. However, Mr. Jim Leonello, your demonstrator here, is a very strong performer in this style, as well as being Green Dragon's monkey specialist, and can still execute the moves even with undesirable pauses throughout. Some points to consider in the meantime. This form is based on the leader of the 8 Drunken Immortals, the 8-foot-tall giant Chong Nei of Han, whose depiction will appear at the end of this tape. This form is loosely translated as Chung Li chases monsters and ghosts, no doubt a reference to the fact that he is associated with the dead. In fact, is attributed to have the power to raise the dead with a wave of his fan, and to the fact that he employs explosively erratic ground fighting technique because he is often too drunk to stand upright. Most drunken forms, particularly this one, have many sequences which are wide open to interpretation, both as to the number, such as the number of staggering steps, and even the content, in this case dealing mostly with gestures. In such areas, you are limited only by your imagination. The form is intentionally erratic in nature to the point where it is really never done exactly the same way twice by the same person, let alone by 2 different students. The performers are supposed to appear unbalanced and to impart an atmosphere of total unpredictability. The set is more powerful and explosive than most drunken material, which is why Green Dragon included it in the brochure first.
The Green Dragon.
Partially indicative of being a northern
Drunken
form,
Dragon
and
fish.
of course also being related to Titong men, or ground rolling material in particular.
Titong.
For orientation purposes,
boxing.
the staggering, leaning, and bending exhibited throughout the form have 4 main purposes. Avoidance of attacks, similar to bobbing and weaving in professional boxing. Secondly, for the deflection of incoming punches and kicks. Thirdly, for deceiving the enemy as to intentions or for drawing him off balance. And lastly, to set up momentum for an attack sequence. All of these will be clearly seen in Jim's program of combat applications toward the end of the tape. Finally, this drunken set is much more conducive to realistic and practical combat applications than are many others. Strength and application always being at the center of Green Dragon's thinking when evaluating a form. We'll move now to the actual teaching portion of the tape, that of presenting the form in segments, just as it would be taught here in the home studio. In this case, Jim will be breaking the 60-some steps down into 12 separate instructional segments, averaging 4 to 7 steps each, demonstrating as we usually do each segment in at least 2 views. Starting with segment number 1 here, the first 4 steps of the salute portion. Each segment will be demonstrated from at least 2 directions and on a count-by-count or very slow motion basis. We need to add a word of caution as well concerning your attempts to learn this demanding set. If you are a novice in the Chinese martial arts or unaccustomed to falling or engaging in the kind of lower level gymnastic moves that this set does contain, you should exercise great care in trying to duplicate some of these sequences. The potential for injury is quite high. While Jim can perform these moves on concrete at this point in his experience, he did learn the form with the use of heavy mats and has been practicing drunken style for well over 2 years, in addition to all of his work in the monkey styles. Going to segment number 2 now, the next 4 steps, counting as we do stagger steps as 1 count, ending here with the drop into the palm strike in a high bow and arrow stance. And the second view of the next sequence. And segment number 3, likewise 4 steps. The forward roll into the flying double kick and the backward roll leading to a double center line block up and coming down, in, under, and forward to an inverted double palm strike. Segment number 4 now, the next 5 steps, starting with a holding the jug for a drinking sequence. 2 fingers on each side with each hand, sometimes done with 1 hand only, are designed for grabbing and tearing in drunken style. Single hand with a drinking sequence here on the ground. Again, any number of drunken steps done in any style can be used prior to the kick. The fall is to the back, double scissors, and single hand drinking sequence, simulating a jug or a cup, again held by the thumb and the forefinger. Segment number 5, 4 steps again. Roll to the heel kick, crab walking sequence, to the backward roll, and a flailing arm sequence of back fist strikes up and or power blocks with the forearms, covering the center line from bottom to top, coming out of the vertical circles. Segment 6. 5 steps again. Have a drop over or ragdoll sequence here. Double backhand strike with the open hands. Stagger stepping again. Forward roll to the turning 360-degree flying crescent kick, coming right out of the ground rolling technique. Second view of 6, starting with a palm block into the drop over sequence, double backhand, staggering into the roll, finishing on the 360 flying crescent kick. Most of your kicking here is done high, especially the flying type kicks, indicative of northern drunken style as opposed to southern. The 6 steps of segment number 7.
He's good at performing the technique.
Nice blocking, striking sequences, flying rear heel kick,
Performing the
and finishing on the swinging back fist up while moving into
almost
the
like
kneeling
the
horse.
crazy drunken fist techniques. He performed it well.
And the second view of 7.
Yeah, he's definitely performing the drunken boxing. Kung
Those
Fu.
forward rolls that land with the legs spread
Kung
wide
Fu forward.
are generally accomplishing one of 2 things. Either heel kicks to an opponent who has already been taken down, or setting the performer up for some kind of a scissors or tripping move. Segment number 8 now. 7 steps here.